everyone, we need to kick this off. So if we can start the recording, and then we will call to order the February 8th, 2021 Board of Zoning Appeals. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the January 25th meeting. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Puller. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Peters. Ms. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Puller?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries 5-0. Any special requests or continuances, Sergey or Ed?
None that I know of.
Nothing from legal.
All right. Next item would be findings of fact for docket V 2020-025, the dimensional variance for Take 5 Indiana. I will take a motion to take final action.
Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number V 2020-025.
Second.
Have a motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Puller. Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Puller?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Motion carries 5-0. We have no old business on the agenda. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. First item is BZA 2021-001, the dimensional variance request by Reese Nichols, jeweler, for 789 US 31. Who is presenting on behalf of this docket?
Eric Prime. Am I coming in okay?
You are.
You are.
Prime, how are you?
Terrific. So, much better than the last time I tried to do this.
Yeah, this is a good news for tonight.
Yeah.
And before we move forward, Mr. Prime, anyone else here to speak for or against this? Okay.
This is Sam Bondra with Delve Design. I'm here to support Eric if any questions come up.
Okay, in that case, I'm going to have Lori swear both of you in. Let's start with Mr. Prime with Eric.
Mr. Prime, do you swear under penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
And then Mr. Dell.
What was his name, Mr. Dell?
Yeah. D-E-L-D?
Delve Design.
Oh,
Mr. Dell, do you swear under penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
And so, Sam, what's your last name for clarification?
Vonderau. V as in Victor, O-N-D-E-R-A-U.
Thank you. All right, so Eric, we'll need your name and address for the record, I believe.
Sure, it's Eric Prime, Van Valer Law Firm, 225 South Emerson, Greenwood, Indiana.
Okay, and then we can start by telling us why you're here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Here this evening on behalf of Reese Nichols Jewelers. I'm sure most of you are familiar with them. They're located in the Greendale Center, which is at the corner of Fry Road and 31. They've been a long-term corporate, participant, corporate citizen in Greenwood. They're looking to do a refresh of the building. It's been in its present status for quite a while, and they're working to kind of rebrand and give it a new facade. The problem is that the Greendale Center was built well before any of the developmental or architectural standards were taken in by the city. And so what happened was this building was built not with the structure necessary to hold a substantial amount of masonry, which is now required under the development standards. So am I going to be able to share my screen, or is IT going to run the PowerPoint that I sent?
You should be able to share, or Dale,
Should be able to share.
IT can, yep. Okay.
Shouldn't be any restrictions.
Okay. Let's see. Everybody see that?
It is coming up right now. Yep. There we go.
Okay, terrific. The location that we're talking about obviously is here at the corner of Fry and US 31. This is the current iteration of the building. It's been that way for quite a while. Not bad looking by any means, but it needs an upgrade. And so what they are planning to do is to move to this type of a design, which will be more of a wood and metal panel design. As I mentioned, the building itself, the structure was not built to hold a substantial amount of masonry. So all of these materials, while looking good, are lightweight in nature. And so we had to, in order to carry this design out, we needed 3 variances from the current ordinance that the city has. And those are to reduce the required masonry material from 50% to 10% on the south elevation, which is the front door, and then from 50% to 22% on the west elevation, which is the side of the building facing 31. And then in conjunction with that, we also need to request that the pilasters are to be of a material that is not stone, brick, or stucco, which is all that the current ordinance allows. It doesn't allow for wood like this or wood composite material. And then thirdly, we needed to increase the percentage of metal panel on both of those sides, which is just the opposite of decreasing we're decreasing the brick or masonry and increasing the metal panel. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. So what you have in front of you is the design that we have settled on. They're going to actually make the whole front entrance a lot more pedestrian friendly. As you can see, right now there are 5 or 6 parking spaces that front end into the building, and those will be taken out and have a much nicer area out front for folks to come in and out. And I think that's an upgrade on the building as well. So let me duck down. These are just the same basic thing, except now you have a straight on view of the south elevation as well as a straight on view of the west elevation. And then the area around the sign on the west elevation is a brick material. It's a masonry material, but again, it's called thin brick, and it's much lighter weight than regular heavy masonry brick, and the building will accommodate it. And I guess let me step back just for a second. If we were required to comply with the current ordinance, they would have to completely redo and add a curtain wall all the way around the building in order to support all the masonry. So it just wasn't built. That building wasn't built with those design standards in mind. But I think you'll agree with me that what they have planned here is a really nice looking facade. And they've been a long-term corporate citizen of Greenwood, as I mentioned. They are an anchor tenant for that Greendale Center, and they certainly bring a lot of traffic into that area. So I think for all of those reasons, it's certainly desirable to allow them to do this. And so I need to run through, so Sergey doesn't get mad at me, through the statutory criteria. There are actually 3 separate statutory criteria in your packet and in the staff report, but I'm going to just kind of combine them because they're all basically the same. It's the 3 different variances that I described, but the first criteria is that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. I think this one's pretty obvious. They're not bringing in a new use. They're not doing it in a way that is in any way dangerous or unsafe or immoral. So that one's pretty easy and applies to all 3 of the variances. The second is the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Again, this is a refresh and an upgrade to an already nice looking building, but it's just a new and clean design that honestly I think looks more south side. I like it. I like the wood. I like that kind of combination of wood and metal, and it really is going to give that a good clean look. So certainly no adverse impact on adjacent property values. And then the next criteria, this one's always the tricky one, right? That you have to show some practical difficulty with the strict application of the ordinance. Well, here it's a pretty easy one, right? It's the fact that the building was not designed to withhold or withstand that substantial amount of masonry. That's why if you go back to the current version of the building, there's almost no masonry on it, and there was never intended to be for that that structure. And even with the new one, we've got masonry on the side facing 31, but the rest of it is going to be the metal panel and the wood composite. And the nice thing about both of those materials is that you've got on the metal, it's a 30-year finish warranty. It's Class A flame spread. It's lightweight, thermally stable, and more durable. It doesn't weather. The same with the wood material is the same kind of deal, where it's a composite material that will not require a bunch of upkeep. It won't splinter. It won't split. It won't degrade in color. It won't rot. So all of those things are good for the long-term view of the building. And so that is the practical difficulty with the strict application of the ordinance, is this building won't support the amount of masonry that's normally required. But I think, as I said before, I think you'll agree with me that what they have in front of you, what they have planned here is a really nice, refreshing upgrade to what's there. So that's all I have, unless there are questions. I would note that the staff reviewed all of our petition and findings and agreed with all of our statements of reason, and has recommended approval, with the one stipulation being that it be completed in a substantially similar manner to what was shown here. And we're certainly willing to make that commitment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Prime. Mr. Vanderall, anything to add?
No, I think Eric did a great job. I'm available if any staff have questions.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will close the public hearing, and I'll open it up to the board. Mrs. Peters?
No questions.
Mr. Poehler?
No questions. Looks good.
Mr. Foster?
No questions.
Mr. Smith?
Looks great.
Yep. Same here, yeah, and appreciate Mr. Prime, particularly with the peculiar, or the number 3 on the statutory criteria, right? We appreciate the approval of the evidence there. So I have no other questions. With that, are all the notices in order?
Yes, we have the newspaper notice affidavit and the proof of publication, and as well as the certificate of mailing from the post office are all in the file.
And I will take a motion to accept all those into the record.
So moved.
Chairman, Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Smith. Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Poehler?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Motion carries 5-0. I will now take a motion, or a motion on the first item on the first request within the ballot, which is number 1, the decrease the required percentage of masonry material from 50% to 10% on the south elevation and reduce to 22% on the west elevation.
Chairman, I motion to approve the request with the condition indicated in the staff report that the south and west elevations substantially comply with the exhibits B and C as provided by the petitioner attached to the report.
I
Second.
have a motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Poehler.
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Poehler?
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
I am a yes. That motion carries 5-0. I will take a motion on the second request, which is to allow the pilasters to be constructed with heavy timber wood instead of stone, brick, or stucco.
Chairman, I motion that we approve the request
With the same request,
with the same condition in the staff report.
Okay.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Poehler. Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Poehler?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
I am a yes. That motion carries 5-0. And then we'll take one more for number 3, to increase the allowable percentage of metal panel from 20% to 61% on the south elevation and 66% on the west elevation.
Chairman, I motion that we approve this request with the staff recommendation of the south and west building elevations to substantially comply with exhibits B and C as provided in the petition and provide attached to the report.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Poehler. Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Poehler?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That motion also carries 5-0. Please remember to fill out your ballots and sign them. And we will get them to Lori this week. I will take a, let's see. I'll take a motion to adopt written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented, variance petition number BZA 2021-001. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Peters. A second, was that Mr. Poehler again?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Poehler. Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Poehler?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That motion also carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time tonight, and we'll take final action at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Any new business from the floor? Seeing none. Ed, any announcements?
I have none.
Sergey?
I have none.
And
I do have
Dale?
one.
Dale?
We have a planning commission after this meeting. It doesn't start till 7. So if IT wants to keep the meeting running, but you can pause the recording, we'll be back on here at 7.
Okay, thank you, Dale. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Chairman.
This meeting for February 8th, Board of Zoning Appeals has been adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.